The Lotus Method is a 4-stage samurai system for forcing your brain to do hard things, not through willpower, not through motivation, through a complete reprogramming of how your mind relates to difficulty itself. The samurai of feudal Japan were not simply tough, they were engineered. They trained their nervous systems to move toward resistance the way most people move away from it. And they used one image above all others to understand how that transformation worked. A flower that grows in mud. A flower that cannot bloom in clean water. A flower that needs the darkness and the pressure and the resistance to generate the upward drive toward light. If you stay with this video until the end, you will have the complete 4-stage system, every stage practical, every stage backed by both samurai philosophy and modern neuroscience. This is the Lotus Method, and this is Void Dojo. Before the 4 stages, I need to tell you about a warrior monk named Benkei, because his story is not just interesting, it is the most complete recorded example of this transformation in all of Japanese history. Benkei was born in the Heian period, son of a temple keeper. Raised among monks but built for war, by the time he reached manhood he was enormous, violent, and completely ungovernable. He haunted the bridge at Gojo in Kyoto and challenged every samurai who crossed it at night. He had collected 999 swords through pure force alone and was hunting for his 1000th. Then he met Yoshitsune. Yoshitsune was young, slight. He carried a flute as he walked across the bridge. Benkei attacked immediately. And what happened next became one of the most studied moments in Japanese martial history. Not because of who won, because of what the losing revealed. Yoshitsune moved through Benkei's attacks like water moving through open hands, nothing to grip, nothing to push against. Every time Benkei swung, Yoshitsune was already somewhere else, already moving, already 3 steps ahead without appearing to hurry. When Benkei hit the ground, he did not get up angry. He lay still. And in that stillness something cracked open in him. He bowed, and pledged his life to Yoshitsune on that bridge. From that day, Benkei became the most loyal and feared retainer in Japanese history. He followed Yoshitsune through the Genpei War, through betrayal and exile and cold and starvation. He never wavered. And at the end, at the gates of Koromagawa, surrounded by an entire army, Benkei stood alone. Arrow after arrow entered his body. He kept standing. He died at that gate, still guarding it. What changed on the bridge? What transforms a man who runs from real difficulty into someone who physically cannot be stopped by it? That is the question the Lotus Method was built to answer. Here is what your brain is actually doing every time it resists. Your prefrontal cortex handles long-term thinking, planning, and discipline. It is also the most metabolically expensive region in your brain, and your brain, above all other priorities, is designed to preserve energy. So every time you face a hard task, your brain runs a cost-benefit calculation without your permission. It registers the effort, the uncertainty, the discomfort. And when those numbers do not immediately add up, it routes control away from the prefrontal cortex and hands it to the basal ganglia, the habit brain, the part that only knows how to repeat what is already familiar and comfortable. This happens in milliseconds. Before you are even aware of the resistance, the decision has already been made. This is not weakness. This is evolution. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. And willpower is your attempt to override a system optimized over 200,000 years of survival pressure. You were never going to win that fight by force alone. That is what the samurai understood, and that is what the lotus teaches. The lotus flower grows in the darkest, murkiest water it can find, not despite the mud, because of it. The pressure and resistance of the water pushing against it from every direction is not the obstacle to blooming, it is the engine. Remove the mud and you remove the mechanism. The lotus cannot bloom in clean, still water. It needs the struggle to generate the upward drive toward light. What if difficulty is not the enemy of growth? What if discomfort is not a signal to stop? What if the resistance your brain generates every time you face something hard is not a problem to be solved, but a resource to be used? That single shift is the foundation of everything that follows. Stage 1. Nintai, the seed in the mud. The first stage of the lotus is the seed buried at the bottom. Total darkness, complete resistance, no visible movement. Just the seed in the mud doing the invisible work of becoming. The Japanese called this Nintai, enduring patience, not passive waiting, active endurance. The decision to remain present in difficulty without reacting to escape it. The samurai trained this through practices designed specifically to be uncomfortable. Cold water before dawn every morning. Seated meditation for hours while the mind screamed to move. Sword drills repeated past the point of boredom and fatigue into the territory where the nervous system begins to restructure itself. They were not punishing themselves. They were teaching their nervous systems one precise lesson. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is the beginning of the process. Modern neuroscience calls this psychological flexibility, the ability to remain in contact with discomfort without automatically reacting to escape it. Every time you feel the resistance and move through it anyway instead of around it, you are training a specific neural pathway. You are teaching your brain that this feeling is survivable, not an emergency, just the mud. And the mud is where everything begins. The Nintai practice. The next time you feel resistance, do not fight it and do not avoid it. Sit with it for 60 seconds. Feel where it lives in your body. Notice whether it is sharp or dull, moving or still. You are not trying to make it disappear. You are training your brain to recognize that discomfort is the beginning, not the end. Stage 2. Seishi, the posture of purpose. As the lotus begins rising from the bottom, before it can see the surface, before it has any evidence that light exists, it orients. It aligns itself towards something it has never experienced. It moves with direction before it has any confirmation that the direction is correct. The samurai called this Seishi. Your posture, your intention, your physical stance as you enter difficulty. Most people wait until they feel ready before they begin. They negotiate with their mind, trying to generate enough motivation to justify starting. And the mind, which is actively trying to avoid the cost of engaging the prefrontal cortex, wins that negotiation almost every time. The samurai understood what modern psychology has confirmed as embodied cognition. Your body does not simply reflect your mental state, it creates it. Slouched posture with shallow breathing signals threat and uncertainty to your nervous system. Upright posture with deep breathing signals safety and capability. 2 minutes of deliberate postural adjustment before a difficult task measurably changes cortisol levels and increases prefrontal cortex engagement. The samurai had no data on this. They had generations of observation pointing to the same truth. Before anything hard today, stop, straighten your spine, set your jaw, Take 3 slow diaphragmatic breaths. Move your body into the task before your mind has agreed to follow. Your mind will follow. It always follows a body that leads with certainty. Stage 3. Kansho, the reflection of growth. As the lotus rises through the water, it begins reflecting the light from above. Before it reaches the surface, it carries light downward into the darkness it is still moving through. The samurai called this Kansho, clear seeing, accurate reflection on your own development, not from pride, not from shame, from precision. Most people reflect on growth in the least useful way possible. They measure themselves against the finished version of what they want to become, and experience only the gap, only the distance remaining. And the gap measured as distance remaining activates scarcity circuits in the brain. It drains motivation rather than building it. The samurai practice of Kansho was different. It was a daily examination of evidence. What difficulty did I face? What did I do when I faced it? What does that prove about my capacity? Not feelings, evidence. Your brain needs proof that growth is real to sustain the dopamine response that makes continued effort feel worthwhile. When you regularly reflect on what you have actually walked toward this week, what resistance you moved through instead of around, you are feeding the exact neurological system that makes discipline sustainable. Once a week, ask yourself 3 questions. What hard thing did I face? What did I do? What does that tell me about who I am becoming? Write the answers. Your brain discards what it does not deliberately encode. This is the lotus reflecting light back into the mud. Stage 4. Kaka, the bloom through struggle. The lotus does not bloom in spite of having grown through mud and darkness. It blooms because of it. The struggle was not the price paid for the beauty. The struggle was the mechanism that produced it. Remove the struggle and you remove the bloom. They are not separate. They are the same process. This is Kaka, the stage where pain becomes purpose, where discipline stops being something you impose on yourself and becomes something you simply are. The samurai described the highest level of this as the moment the sword and the swordsman become one. No more negotiation with resistance. No more checking whether motivation is high enough to justify starting. Only movement, the way water moves, without deliberation, without cost. Benkei reached Kaka at the gates of Koromogawa with 100 arrows in his body. He did not reach it through one dramatic decision on one important day. He reached it through 10,000 mornings of choosing difficulty when ease was available, until the resistance was no longer something he managed, until it was something he moved toward automatically. The mud had become his natural element. Neuroscience calls this automaticity, the point at which repeated deliberate behavior has restructured the brain's default pathways so completely that the hard thing becomes the path of least resistance. The basal ganglia, which was originally routing you away from difficulty, has been retrained through sufficient repetition to route you toward it. The Kaka practice. Choose one hard thing every day. Not randomly hard, hard in the direction of who you are becoming. Do it before you feel ready. Do it as a statement to your nervous system about what kind of person you are. Repeat until the statement stops being something you make and starts being something you simply know. Benkei on the bridge was not the transformation, it was the recognition. He saw in Yoshitsune what was possible for a human being who had completed this process, and he made a decision in the mud of his own defeat to begin. Everything that followed was the accumulated result of 10,000 repetitions of Nintai, Seishi, Kansho, and Kaka. By the end there was no gap left between the man and his purpose. That is why he stood at that gate with 100 arrows in his body and refused to fall. Not because he decided to be brave in that moment, because there was no version of Benkei left that knew how to do anything else. This is the complete system. Nintai. Feel the resistance and move forward anyway. The seed in the mud. Seishi. Set your body before your mind agrees. Let your posture call your mind into alignment. Kansho. Reflect weekly on evidence of growth. Feed your brain proof that the process is real. Kaka. Make difficulty a daily practice until it becomes identity. Bloom because of the struggle, not despite it. Your brain is going to resist the next hard thing. It was built to. That resistance is not your failure. It is your mud. And now you know what grows in mud. There is one hard thing waiting for you right now. You already know what it is. The Lotus Method does not ask you to be ready. It asks you to begin in the dark. The bloom comes later, but only if the seed goes into the mud today. This is Void Dojo. The path is long. Walk it anyway.